6 weeks after the tragic discovery of teenager Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body in a Tesla linked to rising singer David, the investigation is now taking a new turn. Frustrated by what he calls a lack of information from police, the owner of the Hollywood Hills mansion where David had apparently been staying has hired a private investigator to...
They called him a prodigy, the boy who turned heartbreak into melodies that echoed through the veins of a generation. D4vd, the soft-spoken genius whose songs painted emotions too raw for words. His music was a sanctuary for millions, until the walls came crashing down. What began as whispers on the internet would soon spiral into something far darker, something that not even fame could silence.
Discovery of the body in the Tesla. Someone is reportedly being brought in behind the scenes to dig for answers. And we're going to get to that. But first, here's how all this began, okay? September 8th, LAPD officers were called to a Hollywood tow yard on Mansfield Avenue after workers noticed a foul odor coming from a Tesla that was registered out of Texas. The vehicle had reportedly been abandoned in the Hollywood Hills days earlier and was towed. When officers opened the front trunk, that is when they made a horrifying discovery. Human remains wrapped in plastic. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner later identified the dismembered body of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who had been reported missing from Riverside County in April of 2024. According to authorities, Celeste's remains were badly decomposed. So this is possibly suggesting that she had been in that car for an extended period of time. To be clear, her official cause of death remains deferred at this point. There appears to be more testing that needs to be done. But at the time she disappeared, there were rumors that were circulating linking Celeste to David, this rising singer. There was apparent Discord chat screenshots and fan speculation suggesting that she had been in contact with him and they may have been in some sort of relationship despite the age difference, 20 years old. Celeste's family told NBC Los Angeles that her 15th birthday was the day before her body was found, that she had disappeared after leaving home to see a movie. One detail that immediately drew attention is that Celeste reportedly had a tattoo on her finger that read, "Shh." This is a design that appeared almost identical to one seen in photos of David's own hand. Since the discovery, the fallout for David has been swift and it's been severe. Both of his remaining U.S. tour dates, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they were canceled along with multiple European shows that were listed on Ticketmaster. A planned Grammy Museum appearance in LA also quietly vanished from the venue site. His label, Interscope Records, confirmed to TMZ that all promotional activities, including his deluxe album release, has been paused. His brand deals falling apart. He was featured in this Hollister and Crocs collaboration. That has apparently been scrubbed from the campaign days after the launch. In a brief statement, a spokesperson said the singer is cooperating fully with authorities, though no arrests have been made. David has not been implicated in any wrongdoing. He is not facing any crimes. He hasn't been charged. He isn't an official suspect. And he's been silent publicly. We now know that he's retained a powerhouse criminal defense attorney, Blair Burke, who has represented a number of celebrities. No statement from her or from David's team so far. And as of now, 6 weeks after this grim discovery, there have been no arrests. There's been no publicly named suspects, no confirmed cause of death, as I said, no confirmed persons of interest. They haven't even identified the exact connection between Celeste and David. And this situation, I will tell you, is rapidly evolving, and it seems behind the scenes. Because now, in the weeks since Celeste's body was found, there are new details that are beginning to surface. By the way, we have been on top of this story from the beginning.
At first, nobody believed it. A few screenshots, vague posts, rumors tossed around by faceless accounts. But soon, those fragments began to form a picture, a story that didn't fit the golden image the world thought they knew. A story of control, manipulation, and betrayal that would tear open the facade of one of music's most promising young stars. Behind the soft tone and poetic lyrics, there were shadows. People began to question who D4vd really was away from the mic. Fans who once adored him now found themselves combing through every lyric, every livestream, every cryptic post, searching for clues that might have been there all along. Because when the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't just shocking, it was devastating. The revelations began quietly, from an unexpected corner of the internet. A forum thread, buried deep, claimed that a small circle of insiders had knowledge of incidents that took place long before D4vd's fame exploded. Allegations that connected him to a web of secrets stretching far beyond his own circle. They spoke of manipulation disguised as mentorship.
Has now entered the picture, and it could change what we know about who's really driving this case forward and why it might be driving it forward. I'm going to get to that, but first, to help us break it all down, I want to bring on a special guest. I'm joined right now by private investigator TJ Ward, who, by the way, was the PI on the Natalie Holloway case. TJ, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, based on your experience, and we're going to get into this new update in a minute, but based on your experience with missing teen cases, what are the early investigative red flags that you would have noticed, that you would have caught on to or highlighted in this one, in Celeste Rivas Hernandez's disappearance, the online rumors connecting her to David?
Well, one of the things that you need to do after a law enforcement gets involved is start looking at everybody that's involved. You have to start looking at those people and who they may think may be involved or what may be involved. So obviously this body was found in the trunk of this man's car. And now one of the things that we have that is kind of unique is there's cameras everywhere. So looking at cameras and finding if there was cameras near where his car was or how his car got there or where it may have been is real important. But even when I get involved in cases, when I get hired, I always look into the person that hired me. I start looking into them also. That's real important. You need to find the background about the person that wants to hire you and why. And let me tell you why I tell you that. I have been hired or tried to get hired on people that have protective orders against them, and they want to hire me to find out what's going on with the person they have a protective order against them. So you have to be real careful and look at the person that's hiring you also to be able to get into a case. You don't want to get caught up in something of that nature. But that's what brought my attention several years ago when somebody tried to hire me when they actually had a protective order against them. And so I started looking at everybody that hires me. I'll look into them first and see what's going on with them.
That leads me perfectly into what's happening right now, because the new focus seems to involve this LA home that David reportedly rented for tens of thousands of dollars a month prior to Celeste's body being found. And this leads to a new development I want to get into. So TMZ reports that a private investigator has been brought into this in some way, not by law enforcement, no, that the owner of this Hollywood Hills mansion where Burke was staying
of relationships that blurred the line between inspiration and control, of a system built to protect young stars while hiding the cracks beneath. Then came the leaks, messages, audio snippets, fragments of confessions that painted a disturbing picture. The once celebrated voice of a generation now found himself at the center of a storm that threatened to erase everything he had built. Each revelation was more unsettling than the last. Friends turned into accusers, mentors became suspects, and the industry that once lifted him up began to recoil in fear. As the investigation gained traction, patterns emerged. The so-called teen case that once seemed isolated was now linked to a deeper structure, a network of influence that reached into management, producers, and even online fan communities. What started as an individual scandal began to look like a collective secret. People began asking, how long had this been hidden? And how many knew? The silence was deafening. For weeks, D4vd said nothing.
This again is not surprising because there is still an ongoing investigation, and it's consistent with the reporting that we've seen so far. And while the death certificate confirms that an autopsy was performed, reporting suggests that the medical examiner is waiting on the results of toxicology examinations. Now, this is interesting. The death certificate indicates that Celeste apparently was not pregnant at the time of her death, nor had she been pregnant in the last year. And this comes as there has been a lot of speculation about her relationship, her connection with David. So we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about his movements. Before we do that, one more thing about Celeste, and this is big. So in our previous episode of Sidebar, we talked about how Celeste had reportedly run away in the past, and there were surveillance footage from March of 2024 that was released. It was taken from a local liquor shop in Lake Elsinore. She apparently lived nearby. That's about 75, 76 miles away from where her body was found in that Tesla. Now, that footage seemingly captured her walking and then jogging down a street. She turned the corner and she disappears from view. We thought this may be the last known footage of her before she vanished and ultimately was found in that Tesla this year. Turns out there is new footage. There is additional footage that we have to talk about. This came out after we did our recording yesterday. So TMZ obtained footage of what appears to be Celeste in September 2024. So that is different from the timeline that we had all understood, right? The one that we thought she went missing in April of 2024. In this footage that was captured on Nest camera on September 8th, 2024, and apparently provided by neighbors, it seemingly shows Celeste upset, arguing with people, reportedly over a prank that was pulled on her parents' home, potentially Ding Dong Ditch. TMZ reporting that racial slurs may even have been used during this altercation. And also, according to TMZ, a neighbor's boyfriend went over to Celeste's family home afterwards to say sorry, but Celeste's dad reportedly didn't seem to be too upset by the whole thing. Okay, the reason this is important, again, the reason this is key, is because it shows Celeste, or apparently shows Celeste, alive at Lake Elsinore in September of 2024 after she had disappeared, after she was missing, and apparently was on missing persons posters since April of 2024. Also, TMZ points out that September 8th, when this happened, is the day after her 14th birthday. And by the way, in a chilling twist, that is 1 year before she was found in that car.
His social media went dark. Streams of his songs dropped overnight as fans debated whether they could still listen to the music that once gave them comfort. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some defended him fiercely, calling it a setup. Others demanded accountability, pointing out details that no longer seemed coincidental. Then, at last, came his voice, a short statement, barely a paragraph, posted to his story and deleted within minutes. "There are things I can't talk about," it read, "but I need everyone to know that I'm not who they say I am." Those words only deepened the mystery, because for some, that sounded like denial, but for others, it sounded like fear. As more witnesses came forward, a narrative began to take shape. The teen case wasn't about a single moment, it was a timeline, a slow unraveling of trust, power, and exploitation woven into the very fabric of how fame consumes youth. The music industry, desperate for its next rising star, had built a system where pressure and secrecy thrived, and D4vd, willingly or not, had become both a victim and a participant in it.
It was 1 day after she had turned 15 years old. But now we have something new. Now we have this new video, and it is so weird. Not even sure if it's connected or ties into this case per se, maybe, but we're going to discuss it. So TMZ obtained police body cam footage, and this is from days after Celeste's body was found in that 2023 Tesla. And police show up to David's Hempstead, Texas family home. So we're talking September 18th, after Celeste was ID'd. And the Texas officers, they respond to this home, guns drawn, and they respond to a report of gunfire.
I'll go out wide and keep you covered. You want to tap the door? Just wait for me, Because I'm going to keep you covered. Go ahead. I got you covered. Come right here. There's too many windows. Here, knock on the door. Dude, we got a phone call from here saying that somebody was dead. What? Is there somebody else that lives on this property that has your address? What's your address?
No.
That's it.
That's it. That's what actually got.
We got an address. There was a gunshot and a woman scream.
What?
I'm serious. That's why we came up here like this, because and then they talked to the caller. Whoever they were talking to said that there's a person dead.
No, sir. No, sir.
So officers have guns drawn. They're ready, thinking someone might be dead. And there is just seemingly a lot of confusion by David's parents. They don't appear to have any idea what's going on. They close the door. So let's see what happens next.
Ma'am, we got to figure out what's going on so we can leave, okay?
Very advised. We made contact. They said nothing happened here. She shut the door. Now she's calling 911.
That's clear. We haven't received a call.
I believe she's going to be in the process.
Go ahead, give him a call if you want to verify it. Okay.
All right, she's calling you now. There's more that went on.
Can you repeat, sir? Broken traffic.
Huh? That's not normal activity. If you were at the wrong address, they'd be concerned about somebody else. Like really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they'd be trying to help.
Can you send Tinder 42, sir?
Sorry to bother you, but somebody called and said there was something. I mean, there was a person they called on themselves. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, there's somebody dead.
Someone's dead. Yeah.
That's what we have. I mean, we have to take caution. You know what I mean? Wasn't trying to scare y'all. Just this house is way off the roadway.
So you just opened the gate and came in?
Yes, ma'am. I'll put it back. I have a gate just like it.
I think it's part of my country.
Yeah, when it's something like this, when they say somebody's dead, their life matters more than, you know what I mean? I didn't.
The deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about one artist, it was about a culture, a machine that demanded constant perfection, that turned vulnerable creativity into a commodity, that blurred the lines between art and life until the two could no longer be separated. In that chaos, mistakes were made, choices were twisted, and legacies began to rot from within. By the time court documents began circulating online, it was too late to contain the damage. The headlines were merciless. D4vd's name trended for all the wrong reasons. Endorsements vanished overnight, collaborations were pulled, and even former allies refused to speak his name. What was once a story of talent and triumph now read like a cautionary tale. Inside the courtroom, the tension was suffocating. The world watched as testimonies revealed layers of manipulation, secrecy, and regret. The teen case became the face of something much larger, a mirror reflecting the darkness hidden beneath the glittering lights of fame. Every revelation chipped away at the myth until there was nothing left but a broken truth. And when the verdict came,
anything regarding Celeste? And I will tell you one thing I wonder, there is a theory that David was framed, right? A body was found in his car in a public place. Does this connect to that? Is he being targeted in some way? Singer David has hired a prominent defense attorney as rumors and speculation around the death of a 14-year-old girl, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, continue to grow. The teen was found dead in a car registered to the viral artist, who was in the middle of a tour when her remains were found. Now, as Celeste's family prepares to say goodbye, we're digging into the latest details as well as theories about what might have happened to her, and we're going to break it all down with criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Matt Mangino. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. One of the songs that rocketed David Anthony Burke, known by his moniker David, to stardom was Romantic Homicide. It is back on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, okay, the hit, which originally went viral on TikTok back in 2022. It has re-entered the charts at number 38, according to Billboard. So why the sudden interest? Well, for anybody who's been following us here on Sidebar, you know there is a lot going on right now. It seems that fans, new and old, are connecting that chilling song title with an investigation into the death of a teenager who was apparently associated or connected with David before she went missing in 2024. Now, we're talking about the fact that her body was found in a car registered in his name. We are covering every angle of the investigation by LAPD into Celeste Rivas Hernandez's death. The cause of death, which is so far listed as deferred on her death certificate. We don't know the manner of death either. Police say her decomposed body was found in the trunk of a Tesla at Hollywood Tow Yard in Los Angeles back in September. This was one day after she would have turned 15. LAPD sources told People magazine that Celeste's remains had likely been inside that car for weeks as it sat, apparently abandoned, on a neighborhood street before it was towed. Tow yard workers had called the police when at least one person had realized there was this horrible smell coming from the car. That is when first responders found Celeste's body. It was apparently wrapped in a plastic bag. But here's the thing, despite that Tesla being registered to David, despite him apparently renting a property near where that car was parked, and even despite his alleged connection to the victim, he has not been named as a suspect, he has not been named as a person of interest, he has not been implicated officially in any wrongdoing or any crime. In fact, no one has been named as a suspect so far. In fact, an LAPD commanding officer said it is possible that Celeste wasn't even murdered. That perhaps her death, when we think about it, was it attributed to something else, an accident, overdose? In other words, there is a possibility that the only crime could be someone tried to hide her body. So as we await more testing, like toxicology reports, We know that the medical examiner performed an autopsy on Celeste's remains, determined that she was not pregnant, nor had she been pregnant in the last year. That's important because there's been speculation that there could have been some sort of sexual relationship between David and this young girl. He's 20 years old right now. And as more and more rumors spread about David's alleged potential involvement, he has canceled his music tour, which was supposed to include more stops in the U.S., also abroad. He appears to have gone off the grid. We don't know where he is. His social media pages kind of void of new videos and photographs. But there is this. This is new.
Silence filled the air. The once celebrated artist stood motionless, eyes empty, as the judge's words echoed across a world that once sang his lyrics. His legacy, once untouchable, now lay in ruins. The boy who once sang about pain now embodied it. The tears, the apologies, the explanations, all too late. The damage was done. But what made this story so haunting wasn't just the fall, it was what it exposed. The revelation that behind every viral hit and every polished performance, there were hidden battles, unseen forces pulling the strings. D4vd's case became the thread that unraveled an entire system. Labels, managers, and producers faced scrutiny like never before. The public demanded answers, and for once, the industry couldn't hide behind PR statements. Whistleblowers stepped forward, former staff, close collaborators, even family members revealed stories of cover-ups and quiet payoffs. They spoke of emails deleted, contracts rewritten, evidence buried. They painted a picture of an empire built on silence.
Nor a person of interest, and to be clear, David has not officially been implicated in any wrongdoing or any crime, and law enforcement have not even come out with a definitive connection between the singer and Celeste. But I want to bring on right now Will Svilar, who's a retired detective commander. Will, thank you so much for taking the time. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about this case yet, as it's really in the news. It's continuing to develop. We're trying to understand what's happening behind the scenes. Since you and I haven't spoken, let me get your perspective. Why no arrest? Why not name any suspect? Why not name any person of interest at this point? It's been weeks now, and it's almost, what are we at? Almost a month, almost a full month since the body was found.
Well, one thing I want to be clear on is a crime has been committed. Now, and the crime is minimum, we call it in Illinois, desecration of a corpse or improper handling of a dead body. The girl was put in the trunk of a car, dismembered. Somebody did that. That's a crime. Now, the events leading up to her death and her actual cause of death still has to be determined. And without that, you're not going to get a murder charge. Unless somebody says it's a murder, and that's the medical examiner, you're not going to get a murder charge.
To couple that, we've talked about this extensively here on Sidebar, but I haven't talked to you about it. LAPD Captain Commanding Officer Scott M. Williams told People magazine, quote, "The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner has not determined a cause or manner of her death, so we don't know for sure if anyone has any criminal culpability for her death beyond the concealment of her dead body." Now, with that in mind, something I don't think we've talked about yet, is that Fox 11 LA, they spoke with a private investigator, Steve Fisher, who apparently got his hands on images of that car, the Tesla, that Celeste was found in. And remember, this car was apparently sitting there for weeks before it was towed to that tow yard, and then workers there smelled this foul odor and alerted authorities. But it was in the Hollywood Hills. Now, it could suggest she was in that trunk for that extended period of time, too. We don't know how long she was in the trunk per se, but her body was decomposed. Anyway, so Fisher says, quote, "The car almost looks like it's been off-road in the desert or something. The wheel wells are all beat up. There's a huge dent in the back. This could have been an overdose, and they panicked and hid her body because they didn't want to expose the relationship between her and the minor." And by the way, she was found one day after she would have turned 15. With that in mind, you had mentioned that a crime has been committed. We're just not exactly sure how many crimes.
That's absolutely true. And that's correct. Everything we talk about now as far as cause of death is speculation until we have some science to back it up. When you talk about a crime, we talk about the concealment, the dismemberment, the desecration of the corpse. We also talk about a situation where if they can prove that there's some sort of relationship between a 14-year-old and a 20-year-old, that's a problem for him. Yeah, the age of consent in Illinois is 17. You can't give consent at 14 to be with an adult. There's another crime. That's like the backside of that is another crime. If the LAPD can come up with definitive proof that he was in fact involved in a relationship, he has another problem.
Let's analyze this a bit. What makes more sense to you? Someone panicked, put the body in the car, didn't have enough time to know what to do with it. The car was there for a long period of time though, so I don't know if that makes sense. Or
And as those testimonies piled up, it became clear that this was no coincidence, it was a pattern. In the months that followed, documentaries, podcasts, and exposés picked apart every detail. Analysts debated whether D4vd was a manipulator or a pawn, a mastermind or a scapegoat. But the truth, as always, lived somewhere in the gray. He was both the architect and the casualty of his own myth, a young man consumed by the very image that made him famous. Fans felt betrayed, yet many couldn't let go. They replayed his songs, searching for meaning in the lyrics, wondering if the pain he sang about was a confession all along. Every line, every word, every note was reinterpreted in the harsh light of what had come to pass. The music that once healed them now haunted them. In a quiet interview months later, one of his early mentors said something that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. He wasn't evil, they said, he was broken. And this industry doesn't heal broken people, it uses them until there's nothing left. Those words captured what no statement or press release could. The tragedy of a boy who dreamed too big for a world too cruel to let him stay innocent. As time passed, the world moved on, new stars rose.
Of David's life, and that's why he did this.
would his mother have to testify about this transfer?
Yeah, his mother would have to testify. The lawyers who did the transaction would have to testify. The lawyers who drafted the trust documents might have to testify, depending on how these documents were created. I kind of want to see those documents, because were these properties in a trust to begin with, but he was the beneficiary of the trust and the deed was simply in the name of the trust? If that's the case, then he simply transferred the beneficiary. It's still a fraudulent conveyance. It's still going to be undone if there's eventually a judgment against him. Or did he create the trust for the purpose of this particular conveyance? And if he did, that trust document probably would have been created in the last few weeks. I want to know how that trust document came into existence. A whole lot of people are going to have to testify about that.
And real quick, why put it in a trust as opposed to just, I don't know, selling the properties to his mom?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a belief in this country. I do this a lot. There's a belief in this country that if you just put your assets in a trust, they're somehow protected. And the truth is, the reality is, almost all trusts are breakable at some level. Even the most honorific offshore trusts, you see this all the time with offshore trusts in the Caribbean or offshore European trusts. You can eventually break those trusts. It's very hard. It's very expensive. So I suspect he sort of just said, let's just put it in a trust where it won't be immediately reachable. I don't know if it's a revocable trust, if it's an irrevocable trust. If it's a revocable trust, he can simply revoke the trust and take his assets back. It would take one sentence. He could just write, I hereby revoke the trust, sign his name, the assets go back to him. If it's an irrevocable trust, he can't do that because by definition, it's irrevocable. It can be undone by a court if it was fraudulent. But there's all kinds of tax implications for a revocable trust versus an irrevocable trust. I'm not sure why he did this, except I suspect this was sort of a basic.
New scandals emerged, and D4vd's name faded into the shadows of internet memory. But for those who had followed his journey, the echoes remained. His story became a warning, a dark reminder of what happens when art, power, and secrecy intertwine. D4vd's legacy, once built on emotion and authenticity, became a symbol of caution. The teen case revelations didn't just expose one person, they exposed an entire culture of silence, a dark web of secrets that thrived behind fame's perfect smile. And though the world will debate forever whether he was guilty or misunderstood, one truth remains unshakable: the moment the mask fell, the illusion of innocence in the industry shattered with it. And maybe, that's the most tragic part of all, because somewhere in that chaos, the boy who once just wanted to make people feel something was lost forever, and in his place, we were left with a truth too heavy for any melody to carry. The music may still play, the videos may still stream, but the meaning has changed forever. The legend of D4vd will always be remembered, but not for the reasons he once dreamed.